Wow, what a reaction to the brand new Cannondale Synapse launch yesterday. And in this video, we'll get into the reaction and what you all think of that bike following my first look video published yesterday. We'll also talk about whether BB30 and PF30 is at the end of the road, the end of this long reign of press fit systems on road bikes. And also, there's a brand new Canyon Endurace endurance road bike launched today. So I did talk about this being the year of the endurance road bike, and it seems my prediction might be coming true. So a little pat on the back for myself there. Okay, let's dive in. And we'll start with the Cannondale Synapse. Lots of you watched my first look video, my first impression video yesterday, so thank you for watching it and all the feedback, all the likes on that video. I only had 4 hours from collecting the bike to filming it, to editing it and uploading it, so very quick turnaround. So I appreciate all your support in watching it and liking that video. But lots of comments, so lots to dive into. Your reaction to the bike has been fascinating to watch the comments come in and reply to them as much as I can. And it seems that as many of you like some of the new innovation on the bike, lots of you hate what Cannondale are doing. So let's dive into some of your reaction a little bit. Now, firstly, the one innovation or change on the bike that got kind of lost in the press release and lost in the comments a little bit is the fact they've moved away from the PF30 press fit bottom bracket of the old bike back to a BSA 68mm external threaded bottom bracket. Lots of you saw that and lots of you celebrated that, and I think that's the one universal thing that you can all agree on. But apart from that, everything else people love and hate in equal measure. And the biggest opinion dividing feature on the new bike is the Smart Sense technology. So a battery on a down tube, lights and radar underneath the saddle, and a front light as well, and a smart sensor on the front hub. And it does seem like this technology of batteries and lights and radar baked into the frame, not an option, you have to buy a bike with the technology on it, was really divisive and really touched a nerve for quite a few of you. Some of you very passionate in your dislike of this technology being forced onto you in a way that you might not perhaps want. Now, there are a few issues that many of you raised, and one very valid concern, and that's something that I look to address in my review of the bike when I start riding it over the next few days, is how can you fit a saddle pack to the saddle because the light and radar is in the way, and with the handlebar and the light underneath it, can you fit a handlebar bag, which is very fashionable these days. But while fitting a bag to the front or rear of the bike is clearly tricky, you can fit a bag to the top tube, so maybe that is a solution, but something I look to try and work around over the next few weeks, and I'll definitely reach out to Cannondale to see if they have anything to offer or suggest to get around this system. Maybe they can design a special saddle bag and handlebar bag to fit around the lights and radar. But I can see that being an issue for people, so that's something I'll definitely address in my review coming very soon, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And I think the other concern that many of you clearly have is that lots of you watching are clearly experienced cyclists coming out of this from years and years of riding bikes and gathering lots of equipment over that time as well. And lots of you have your own lights and your own preference for lights, different brands and different systems. So small lights for daytime riding and big powerful lights for nighttime riding. And being forced to buy a bike with lights pre-fitted that you might not otherwise buy yourself does seem to be an issue. So being forced into a system when you have your own preference for lights, I can see that being an issue if you are a more experienced cyclist. Now clearly, if you're new to cycling, you buy your first or second road bike and you don't have a real preference for lights, you don't have a box of lights like many of us do, then buying a bike like this with the lights and radar fitted could seem to be a bonus and a USP over other endurance bikes in this category. And the other issue many of you had was the battery placement on the frame, which I talked about in my first impression and gave my thoughts on whether it should be internal versus where it is currently external on the down tube. So here's a battery right now, it's currently charging before I get on the bike later today. So one benefit of it being external is, as you can see, you can remove it, the bike is outside, the battery is inside charging up. It's not that heavy. I'll put it on the scales and flash out the weight here. It's quite light actually. It's no heavier than my smartphone, actually about the same really. So pretty light, pretty slim. Got the battery indicator on there. So pretty sleek design. It's apparently waterproof as well. That's something I'll definitely test because it's raining at the moment, so it might get wet later today. But I do think that being inside a frame would have been really neat, and some way maybe down the line of integrating the Di2 or eTap technology into a battery, so you have one battery powering all the lights, the radar, and also the electronic gears on your bike. That's definitely something that really touched a nerve for lots of you, as I mentioned in that first look. So away from Smart Sense, the other features on the bike also divided opinion, which really surprised me. So we've gone from press fit back to threaded bottom bracket, which most of you agreed was a good move. But some other areas were also met with an interesting reaction. So firstly, we have external cable routing at the handlebar and stem, which lots of you don't like, which really surprised me because there's been quite a lot of flack for internal cable routing systems around the maintenance of the headset bearings and also some of the well-publicised stereo tube failures with like the SL7 as an example. So Cannondale steering away from that whole hot topic of internal cable routing and stereo tube issues, I thought would be more applauded than it actually has turned out to be. So that was really interesting, really surprised me. And the other one is they've gone to a conventional 27.2mm round seat post with an external seat clamp. And I thought most of you would be on board with that, but it appears not. Many of you complained about an ugly external seat clamp. Now, an internal wedge seat clamp is cleaner and prettier, but in my experience, it can be fiddly if you adjust the seat post on a regular basis. You can't beat a nice round seat clamp and a good sized bolt to really get a bit of torque onto it. So again, lots of you disliked that, while lots of you liked it. So it seems bike companies, and in particular here, Cannondale, can't win. They give with one hand, they take away with another. Whatever they do, they can be haters and lovers. So yeah, they can't really win, can they? A bit of a tricky one. And to follow on from one of the big topics of that new Synapse, the switch from BB30, PF30 back to a threaded bottom bracket, it's a question of whether press fit bottom brackets are at the end of the road. Is it RIP for press fit? So Cannondale first introduced its BB30 open standard way back in 2006 and followed with press fit in 2009, and it's been a key part of its road bikes ever since. And in my personal experience, riding a Super 6 Evo for the last 10 years, well, not so much for the last few years, it's been fine. I've never had any issues with creaking or groaning or squeaking, and it's been through several bottom brackets in that time. Now, the issues aren't so much with the design of the bottom bracket, but the implementation, so the manufacturing, the quality control, and also the installation, whether at home or in the factory. My biggest bugbear with a press fit bottom bracket is the removal process using a special tool and a big mallet. It's always scared the hell out of me when you have a 700-gram frame that costs several £1,000s and you're there with a mallet trying to basically smash that bottom bracket out of the frame. So threading a bottom bracket into a frame is much better. But press fit isn't inherently bad and threaded is good. They both had their problems if not manufactured carefully and precisely. And you can still go very wrong with a threaded bottom bracket, and there have been many reports, and I've seen them personally, of people cross-threading the bottom bracket and basically writing off a frame. That happening on a press fit is less of a problem because the bottom bracket shell is smooth, so you just take out the cups and put new ones in. But all that said, we're now seeing some of the big bike brands, the likes of Specialized, Trek, and now Cannondale, which I never thought would ever go back to a threaded bottom bracket on a bike like a Synapse, really show that maybe the end is in sight for press fit as they all shift back to threaded, whether a BSA 68mm threaded bottom bracket as on the Specialized and the Synapse, or the T47 that Trek are using, which is an oversized threaded system developed by Chris King and Argonaut Cycles. So it does rather beg the question of whether this move from press fit back to threaded bottom brackets is an admission by the bike industry, or some of the big bike brands anyway, that they got it wrong and that press fit was never right for the purpose of a road bike and they are going back to threaded. It's worth adding that Giant and other bike brands like Canyon are using PF86 with no issues at all, so press fit can and does work when done well, but when done badly, it doesn't work, as many of you know from personal experience. And I know many of you watching this will have your own answer to the question, probably a resounding yes. But I think it's fair to say and worth adding that innovation, whether in the bike world or other tech industries, is never a smooth road. It's usually a bumpy road of a few steps forward and a couple back, of trying things, refining things, evolving things. And some products might not roll out at the factory or the ideas factory as a fully formed product working perfectly. They take many iterations before they reach their full potential. While some products and innovations, despite all that investment, never really ultimately fulfill their potential or promise, and gradually fade away or get scrapped, as we might be seeing here with PF30 and BB30. So it will be interesting and fascinating to see whether other bike brands follow suit or whether they stick with press fit bottom brackets going forward. But let me know how you feel about this topic by leaving a comment down below. Yes or no, I'd love to hear your thoughts as always. And just like buses, there's another brand new endurance road bike launched this week, the all new Canyon Endurace. So if the Synapse has too much technology for your taste, then this brand new Endurace might be the bike for you. So Canyon has launched a new Endurace at the cheaper end of its range with a choice of alloy or carbon fibre frames. And prices start at £1,400 and top out at £3,000 here in the UK. Check the website in your region for prices where you live. Now, the frame has visual similarity to the current top-level Endurace CF SL and CF SLX, first launched way back in 2014 and updated with disc brakes in 2017. So similarities include the seat tube, the way it intersects the seat stays with a lowered seat clamp, so a seat clamp lower down the seat tube, and a round 27.2mm carbon seat post gives a smooth ride in the saddle. All bikes are disc brake only, with conventional cable routing and regular handlebars and stem. But there are a few key and very important changes over the old bike. So tyre clearance has increased from 30 up to 35, and bikes are spec'd with 30mm wide tyres front and rear, while some have a wider 32mm rear tyre for maximum comfort in the saddle. Then there are two bolts on the top tube, a clear gravel influence. Those small top tube bags are good for longer rides and more aero than a handlebar bag, although not quite as hip or fashionable. Then there's a brand new fork with a straight 1 1/4 inch steer tube, as on high-end Canyon road bikes, for more front-end stability, to quote Canyon. So this move away from the previous 1 1/8 inch steer tube does limit stem options though. It's worth adding that, but Canyon does offer a wide range of stem length if you need a change. Also changed is a bottom bracket from threaded on the alloy models and press fit BB72 on the old CF SL model to PF86, the same as the current high-end Endurace model, and the same as Giant uses and many other bike brands use, but no threaded BSA bottom bracket like the new Synapse we saw yesterday. The company's sport geometry is the same though, so a higher stack and a shorter reach than the ultimate race bike, though in my experience, the Endurace isn't the most relaxed or sit up and beg endurance bike in this category, so definitely at the racier end of the spectrum if that's your cup of tea. And then there's 8 sizes to choose from 3XS to 2XL, with 2 smaller frame sizes rolling on smaller 650B wheels to maintain the same handling despite the different sizes. So I mentioned the prices at the top of this piece, which look good and really affordable, and there's all the usual Shimano and SRAM 2x specification options. But they're making the most of the extra tyre clearance and doing an all-road version. We've seen other bike brands do an all-road version. So Cannondale have done one in the Synapse in past years, and BMC have done it with a Road Machine and Road Machine X. So the tyres on the bike are wider than the regular road bikes, up to a 35mm Schwalbe G1, which pushes it closer to a gravel world. So definitely a gravel light, rough road sort of bike. But personally, I felt they could have gone bolder here and maybe gone with a 1x12 SRAM Explore gearing setup to really push home that sort of simplicity and off-road bias on this sort of bike. And what about the high-end CF SL and CF SLX versions of this new frame? Now, interestingly, we normally get top-down launches, but maybe Canyon is switching things around and saving the top-end stuff, the new top-level bikes, for later this year with something more radical up its sleeves, perhaps. So an interesting move, launching their cheaper, more affordable bikes, really opening up this bike to more people with low price points, and a nice, smart move to wide tyre clearance. The geometry looks good as well, racy, as I said, so not super laid back. Some nice details and a lot of value for money as well, and that all-road spec looks really good. So hopefully I get my hands on one to ride later this year. And it does leave the space open for a new top-end model, and here I have no idea which direction they're going. Whether they go in the direction of a Synapse with baked-in lights and radar, or whether they do something more simple remains to be seen. Canyon do have form with concept bikes integrating lights and other technology into bikes, so maybe they might follow the footsteps of Cannondale as we saw yesterday, but let me know what you think by leaving a comment down below. Anyway, that's all for now. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you want to see the best road bikes of 2022, then check on this video up here. Right, I'll see you again very soon.